I'd like to say welcome. Thank you very much for attending this supplier briefing today. My name is Grant Heel. I'm a procurement specialist within Procurement Australia. Today I'm going to be presenting an industry briefing for the hire of equipment. Procurement Australia will be putting out a tender into the marketplace for this particular category of goods and services. Just wanted to put up some housekeeping just at the moment. For those who haven't heard, you'll notice that all your microphones are on mute currently. That's just to avoid any feedback through people's mics. There is a chat function. You'll notice there's a chat function up in the top right hand of your screen on those in the PCs. Please ask any questions that you'd like in there, and I can answer them as I go along. The intention of today's presentation is to run through the presentation slide by slide, just to explain a bit about the overall project as he flips through to the agenda. The overall project that we're putting out into the marketplace, the contract with which the services will be led under, and the tender process that we'd like you guys to be involved in. The agenda for today, like I said, the contract overview. We'll give a Procurement Australia overview in the first instance. We'll run through a contract overview, a bit more details about the actual contract we'll be seeking for you guys to sign, the scope of the tender, the structure of the tender process itself, and then how to work under this contract. And then some hints and tips on the overall tender process, and allow any questions at the end. So why are we all here today? We're here today because Procurement Australia is putting out a request for tender for the supply of hire of equipment. We're going to be running through, like I said, the contract summary, the tender process itself, and at the end we'll be seeking your feedback. What are we looking for from you as the industry? We'd like your feedback on the specification document that we'd put out. I really feel that this is a very important part of the tender process, and we'd like the document, the specification itself, to be as well understood by industry as possible, so that you guys can put your best foot forward qualitatively in telling us about your company and your ability, your capacity to meet the requirements of the scope of this tender, but also to understand exactly what Procurement Australia and its members are seeking from you guys, so that you can put your best foot forward on the pricing side as well. So we'd really like your feedback on any new components specific to the industry that can be included. I can assure you that the specification is not all-encompassing when it comes to hiring equipment. So we would like your feedback as the experts in the industry on any additions that you feel that would benefit Procurement Australia members in the specification. So with regards to the tender participation itself, I think it goes without saying that we're looking for a really good quality tender response from the industry. I'm sure a lot of you have done tender responses before, so we're really looking for your best quality tenders to come through to Procurement Australia. And in case you can't participate in the process for any reason, we'd really like to understand why, so that we can get an understanding of a wider understanding of the industry and your capacity to do these kind of processes moving forward. A good thing to keep in mind, the more specific details will be provided on what work is required when we're engaging your services. Like I said earlier, the services and the goods under this category of goods and services, it won't be all-encompassing. We have specific requirements given to us by our members, and when you're engaged by those members, there will obviously be more of a dialogue between you and the member to really discuss the requirements on a case-by-case basis if and when they engage you under any contract. So just to keep in mind too, you may be required to provide quotes to members under this deed. So Procurement Australia will be providing a deed contract that you guys will be will seek for you guys to sign. but members may still ask for contractors that are under the deed to provide quotes specific to certain projects they may be running. So Procurement Australia, a little bit about us. Procurement Australasia, as a more formal entity, consists of 3 brands operating under one banner. That would be Procurement Australia, Church Resources, and the Space Station brand. The history of Procurement Australasia was established in 1985 as the MAPS Group, as a City of Melbourne buying group for municipal councils. It started trading as Procurement Australia in the mid-2000s. In March 18, it changed to Procurement Australasia and combined the 3 businesses under that one banner. Procurement Australia, Church, which is the division that I represent. Church Resources was created by the Catholic Church as an aggregator in the non-for-profit sector. Space Station, it was established around 2018 as a co-working flexible office space in Melbourne and Sydney. The services that Procurement Australia offers are listed there. Publicly tendered standing offer contracts, benchmarking is important, advisory consulting is important. All of those different services that Procurement Australia can offer. Procurement Australia's sourcing process is quality assured. It's a very important aspect of the way we conduct our business. It complies with ISO 9001 2015 standard. It also has met the Chartered Institute, SIPS, the Procurement Excellence Standard, and is audited annually under VAGO and external financial auditors. This slide you could slide past quite quickly, but I really want to stress the importance of these assurances and accreditations in the way that Procurement Australia conducts its procurement processes. Some of the benefits to our members. Benefits to our members, and you're going to have a garbage truck, my apologies, coming past the house right now. Some of the benefits to our members, the time and resource savings. There's no real need to run RFTs repetitively. We conduct that procurement process and let the services under a deed. That means our members can contact industry and the suppliers and engage them directly under that deed. We have a broad product offering to our members, and we have flexible contracts arrangements. They can opt in at any time during the contract term. So those suppliers that we conduct the initial tender those members that we conduct the initial tender process on behalf of, they're not the only people that can get access to the services under that deed. Our entire range of members across each state can actually get access to that via an opt-in process at any time during the contract. And also, benefits to our members include the compliant processes that we conduct under those assurances that I previously stated. Some of the benefits to our suppliers. Now, the reduced number of RFTs. It saves times and resources for you guys to be able to concentrate on what you do best. Access to Procurement Australia's members. We have a significant amount of members across Australia. It's access directly to those members on panel arrangements like the one we want to let in this case. Our sales team is constantly expanding the member base to continue to grow this business, and our sales team is constantly promoting our contracts to existing members when they make contact with them. So it won't be just a discussion on one set of goods and services that Procurement Australia can offer. We constantly cross-promote different services to our members and the availability of those services to the members. Moving on to the contract itself, an overview of the contract. In this particular case, the contract will be called for the hire of equipment. The contract number is listed there. The term of this particular contract will be for an initial term of 2 years, plus 2 one-year options to extend. The starting date for this contract will be 1 December and the expiry 30 November 22. There will be 3 service provision categories. Again, they are rough service provision categories that need to be defined. The contract type will be an open panel and a standing offer contract. And the service provision locations for this particular process will be for New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland. The draft specification document that I'm currently working on at the moment is still under review. I'm about 90% completed on that document. What I would very much like to be able to do is, once I have that document in a position where I can send it externally, I would appreciate the ability to send it to industry, to you guys as the industry, for your feedback on that document. I think the information that you can provide through to me is invaluable. So I'd really appreciate the opportunity to work with some of you to make sure that specification document is as good as it can be. Please make contact with me on that email address there, but I might follow up a couple of you as well. Just wanted to point out too, you'll notice that I'm moving through these slides reasonably quickly, and sort of maybe those are scrambling to write down my email address right now. I'm going to be sending a copy of this presentation through to everybody that's put their email address into this process, where you can read through this document in your own time and get more of an understanding, and it'll contain things like my contact details and the contract closing dates and the like, and my email. So my intention is to continue through the process at a reasonable pace, because I would really like to be able to allocate a fair amount of time at the end of this process to questions as well. So the closing date for the comments on this specification, just so that we can continue along with the project timeline, I'd like to make it 7 days from now. So if I can have that specification through to you guys as fast as possible, either today or tomorrow, and get your guys' feedback on that process, I'd really appreciate it. Other things like any categories or subcategories to be considered, any specifications and schedules consistent with the way the industry generally works. That's the kind of important expert information we'd like to know. The objectives of the tender, what are we looking to achieve from this? We want to deliver a compliant tender consistent with the provisions of ISO 9001. That's our primary responsibility. And we want to obtain an outcome that offers PA members a panel of experienced contractors capable of providing the service provision categories. Now, I think that's a very a broad but specific statement, and we're really looking forward to appointing suppliers that can help our members on this on these really important set of goods and services that they're after. So in this particular case, we're really looking for an experienced panel of providers for our members. And we want to provide a centrally managed standing offer contract that also allows for RFQ activity if required from time to time with our members. The scope of the tender, these are the three categories I mentioned earlier. We're broadly grouping them into the hire of plant and equipment, the hire of relocatable buildings, and the hire of temporary fencing. Like I said, they're not currently defined. They can include additional items if you as industry feel that they're going to be important. And also taking into account feedback from my members. If you as industry can give me some feedback to say, we'd recommend this range of products to be added to the process, I can take that back to members and get their opinion on whether or not that should be part of the overall process. One important note I'd like to make is that each of the tenderers, you guys from the industry, you can provide a submission for any one of those categories or all of the categories in one hit. So you don't have to be able to do all of them across all of the states. You can provide a submission for one or all of those categories in each individual state if you wish. So a bit more of a definition of hire of plant and equipment. Under this category 1, we're looking for a wide range of plant and equipment, the definitions of which will be in the schedule of rates document that will form the part of the tender documents. All the rates provided and the hire of equipment in general will be required on a dry hire basis. as I've sort of written into the presentation there, the list of items that are on the schedule of rates that will form part of this tender process, they're not exhaustive, and they are a list of like items from our members' requirements, but we strongly encourage all of the respondents to this tender process to provide pricing and information on their complete range of products, so that our members can understand your full range and capability. But we really do need the items that are specifically asked for within the schedule of rates section for prices to be provided for those, as they're the type of products that we've specifically had asked to us by our members. Category 2, detailed description and range of relocatable buildings for hire, things like lunchrooms, toilet blocks, showers, and site sheds and the like. The tendered rates in this particular case, we'd like to include the cost of assembly and disassembly, but exclude delivery, site works and connections charges. If those charges are required, members are telling us that they can apply for it, or they can let you guys know when they place the purchase order that they would like those services catered for, and you can charge accordingly at that stage. Under this category 3, the hire of temporary fencing, we'd like a detailed description of the range of temporary fencing, including panels, blocks, clamps, bracing, crowd control barriers, pedestrian and vehicular gates, guardrails and handrails and the like. This is more of a generic specification on this one. I think if I get in touch with any of you on helping with the specification, a bit more detail in this area would be great. So I'll be keen to work with industry on expanding the scope for this particular item. On the evaluation and award process with regards to tender submissions, roughly the criteria that we're using, the broad headings for the criteria that we're using will be around compliance. Compliance will not be a scored element of the evaluation. Compliance speaks to compliant to the tender terms and conditions, and the deed terms and conditions, and the supply of insurances and the like. So we'll be looking to maintain to understand understand those areas. The real qualitative areas that we want to focus on is around our customer focus, your performance, how you would actually provide the services to us around that performance banner, and corporate and social responsibility profile. It's an important process for an element of the evaluation for Procurement Australia. And then commercial, roughly price. I've put in their price. It will go obviously into slightly more detail internally, but they're the broad headings when it comes to the criteria with which we'll be assessing your tender submissions. I want to point out again that you can tender for any one category or any combination of the categories across any of the states. So the tender structure, the structure of the tender document that we'll be sending out, it has Part A to Part F. Part A is interesting because it gives you guys a bit more information about the tender process. The conditions of the tendering is Part B. Part C is the deed of standing offer contract. Now that's executed between Procurement Australia and the tenderer if you're successful to form part of this panel. Part D is a sub general conditions of contract agreement. That's a document that is engaged between the tenderer and the Procurement Australia member. Part E is the specification document that I've been speaking to up until now. And Part F is the returnable schedules. This is where we will ask a number of different questions under the headings that I just showed on the evaluation process, where you'll need to provide the bulk of your tender response. These parts of the RFT suite that comes with the downloading through the Tenderlink portal. So the returnable schedules, that part of that Part F that I mentioned just before, there's a number of different schedules in here where we will be assessing your responses to the questions that we ask. These questions will allow us to understand your capability and capacity under the questions that we're asked. So The returnable schedule is a very important element of your submission. It's where the majority of the time should be spent in allowing us to gain a better understanding of your business and your capability to provide these goods and services. These schedules, they may not have a full 16 schedules at the moment. I'm finalising which ones are applicable to these services, so there may or may not be a few removed. The tender process itself, the procurement specialist allocated to this within PA is me. My role within this process is broadly to manage the tender event from start to finish. My role will be to call and close the tender, summarise and evaluate the tender submissions that I receive, and to develop a contract award recommendation, both internally and then through to Procurement Australia's members. So I think as a rule, I will be your primary point of contact for this overall tender process when it's up and running, and also before that period of time, whilst we finalise the tender itself before it's released. So the tender contract responsibilities in a bit more detail. To call and receive the tenders is us. Evaluate the tender contract award decision sits with Procurement Australia. To execute the contract, obviously that's between Procurement Australia and the suppliers that we appoint. To issuing of the purchase orders to engage the services will come from Procurement Australia's members directly through to the suppliers. To any receipts and to the making of payments for those services will come from members as well. The commercial relationships that you have, whilst we will have a schedule of rates that we will provide through to our members, that commercial relationship lies with Procurement Australia members and you guys as suppliers. The sales report and rebate payments, I'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but the supplier's responsibility is the sales report and rebate payments, and the monitoring of the contract's overall performance lies with Procurement Australia. The tender timetable, like I said, this presentation will be sent through to all that would like to see it, so you can have these dates and understand them in a bit more detail. But the advertising dates for this supplier briefing have been done already on the 11th and the 12th. The industry briefing is today. The tender release for this process will be 17 September and closing on the 15th of October. The evaluation will be on 5 November and the contract award will be 10 November with the agreement commencing on 1 December. So how do we download the tender? The tender documents and the overall tender process will be conducted via a procurement portal called TenderLink. The documents are only available via that portal. If you wish to be part of the overall process, you will need to download the documents directly from there. Any documents attained from any other source may make or probably will make your tender ineligible. So I really recommend that you download the documents from that TenderLink portal. Please follow the instructions on the RFT advertisement for TenderLink registration if it's required. I also can give you some more details if you want to email me on that subject. Just some clarifications when it comes to TenderLink as well. Once the tender is up and running, all questions in relation to the tender must be submitted via the TenderLink online forum. Any addendas will be issued also via the TenderLink form, and the last date for questions from industry through to Procurement Australia need to be received via that TenderLink portal by the 8th of November. The tender responses, the tenders must submit all returnable schedules completed and duly signed where required, with any relevant marketing collateral or material that will help us understand your response, and any other basic information deemed necessary by the tenderer. Submissions that need to be uploaded into the TenderLink portal prior to the closing date. If we can avoid any unique or non-standard, in inverted commas, kind of software, the likes of Microsoft Word, Excel, and Adobe, is appreciated. That way we don't have to come back to you and follow you up because we can't open software, proprietary software that you may be providing your submission in. So submissions lodged by hard copy or email or an alternative electronic means other than mentioned above, i.e. Tenderlink, will not be considered. Your submission must come through the Tenderlink portal. Any other means will mean that your tender won't be considered. The Procurement Australia income model speaks to that rebate that I was talking about earlier. The contractor will be required to pay Procurement Australia a rebate in accordance with the deed. The rebate process is very well explained within that document. The rebate percentage for this contract will be confirmed in the tender documents. The tenders will be required to incorporate the rebate into their financial responses. It's an important point that I'd like to take a moment on. The pricing that you provide through to Procurement Australia should be inclusive of the rebate once you understand what that is within the tender documents. And the rebate percentages may differ from each one of those three categories that I mentioned earlier. So how to work under this contract. Members can generally be separated into two groups, the Procurement Australia members. They are pre-committed members. These are members who've pre-committed to the contract prior to the tender being released. So there's no opt-in process. These are the suppliers that have had the process and the proposed services explained to them, and they're committing upfront to be part of the contract once it's established. We also have Procurement Australia members who choose to opt in to the process once the contract is awarded. Members who did not pre-commit before the contract was let have the ability to opt in to use the services at any stage during the contract's term. They provide us with a formal letter to opt into the services, and they can then get access to that. So the graphic just below there basically means Procurement Australia's members have identified the overall PA member pool is canvassed. We get the pre-committed, oops, I'll go back one, my apologies, I clicked on the mouse. Pre-committed members go straight to the contract at the end of the process. And in the section at the bottom there, basically the members that haven't pre-committed will provide us with an opt-in letter. They can get access to the contract at any time during the term as well. So the engagement and invoicing process, how PA and the members and suppliers engage in this overall process. PA basically signs a contract with the suppliers for these particular services. Members have either pre-committed to be part of the process initially, or they issue an opt-in letter to PA, which then gives them access to the services and the pricing agreed. They issue a purchase order through to you, the suppliers, for the services that you've agreed, and that you as the suppliers deliver the service to the member. The supplier then invoices the member for those services conducted, and the member pays the supplier. So that process is pretty standard. The process of receiving a purchase order, providing the goods and being paid is pretty normal. The elements after that at the bottom there for suppliers which are unique to PA are that each month the suppliers under that particular contract are required to provide a report of sales under this contract only through to Procurement Australia. And the supplier then provides that information to PA, and supplier pays the rebate amount based on that total sales through to PA at the appropriate time with the payment terms. Hints on this particular process. We would really appreciate it if you can answer each question. When we go through your tender processes, we go through every question to make sure that we best understand your ability to provide these goods and services, but we don't want you to be disadvantaged by not answering a particular question, and for us not being able to give you your due that section due consideration and evaluation within the overall process. We'd appreciate it if you could refrain from putting refer to attachment with regards to information. We really like to be able to see the information populated in the area that we request it to, again, allow us to fairly evaluate your tenders. If you want to provide an attachment as additional information supporting your answer, then you're more than welcome to say additional information on this subject is provided at this particular attachment. We really appreciate you. We want you to clearly articulate your responses and demonstrate your expertise. We want you to be able to put your best foot forward so that we can better understand your business and convey that through to our members. Where charts and numbers are suitable, please use those. They can be excellent at providing additional information. And wherever possible, please don't use abbreviations. I have a reasonable knowledge with regards to the hiring equipment and plant and the like, but there are definitely some abbreviations that I'm not 100% au fait with. So if you could refrain from using abbreviations, it allows me, again, that better understanding of your overall submission. So what's next? The draft specifications will be finalized very soon, probably after this briefing session. They're available for review and feedback. That feedback's welcomed until about a week from now. You can either please email myself for a copy, or I'll follow up with industry just to understand if anybody can help me with that section. The RFT will be available for download from the 17th of September at Tenderlink. The link and details is listed there. You'll need to register on Tenderlink website prior to downloading the RFT. That registration process is free of charge. And the tender manager's contact details for this process, as I explained earlier, is myself, my mobile number is there, and my email address is there. Just to reiterate, this submission will be sent out to everybody, so you'll have this information sent to you to use at your leisure, as opposed to having to write this down as we go through these slides. So that is broadly